You need to put your child into MMA. It'll be the best decision you ever make as a parent. And in this video, I'm going to talk about all the different reasons why I think MMA is the best sport to put your child into. And this applies from whether your child's 2 years old all the way up until 18 years old. And realistically, this applies to adults as well. But I'm talking to you, the parent, to explain why MMA is the best sport for your child. What I'm not going to do in this video is talk about stuff like where people say MMA makes kids aggressive or it makes them want to fight people. There's so much data like this or this that prove that that's a myth, that that's not true. And I can save that for another video where I go into detail on why MMA isn't the sport that a lot of people think it is and actually does the opposite effect. It makes kids confident. It makes them learn how to defend themselves. It makes them develop problem solving skills. It actually makes them improve in school because it makes them focus more. And the idea that it does the opposite of these things, where it makes them angry, aggressive, bullies, is just an absolute myth. That's not true in the slightest. Another thing I'm not going to talk about is stuff that's based on the gym. So maybe if it can be too rough sometimes, or kids can go too hard sometimes, and that's based on the gym. The next video I'm actually going to do, so keep an eye out for this, is how to pick a good gym as a parent for your child going to MMA. So keep an eye out for that in my next video. I'm going to talk more general and basic stuff on just a human level and why MMA is so good for your child. And the first place I can start is obviously if we compare it to other sports. Most children, including myself, you learn sports like football, cricket, hockey, all the biggest sports in the world, tennis, as a young kid. That's what parents put them in, especially if you're 4, 5, 6 years old. The parent, you as the parent, you're deciding what your child does. It's very rare that a 4-year-old kid will say, oh, I want to join a tennis tournament. Not really going to do that. You as a parent want your child to do tennis, so you're going to take them to a tennis class, etc. But what a lot of parents say is, I'm going to really put them into football. You hear the phrase Project Mbappe, because if they make it, amazing. You're loaded, your whole family's loaded for generations and generations. It's amazing. Football players sign what? Mo Salah's on 400 grand a week. But he's the 0.0001% that actually make it. And then out of that 0.001% that make it, 0.001% of them make the top 5 leagues, make that generational wealth. And the better question to ask is not what would your life be if they make it. It's what happens to them if they don't make it. If you've spent 15 years doing football and you don't make it, well done, you can do a couple of keepy-ups. If you spend 15 years learning MMA, you'll be able to defend yourself for the rest of your life. The rest of your life. I know people who train 13 to 18 boxing, and they're like 40 years old now, and they still know how to punch properly. They still know how to defend themselves properly. I take them on the pads every now and then, and when I say every now and then, I mean once every 18 months, and they still know how to bang on the pads. So it's like riding a bike, you don't forget it. The same with any sport really. If you really dedicated yourself to a specific sport as a child, even when you're 25 years old and you haven't played it for 10 years, you still know how to do it. So why not do that for self-defense, for MMA? You know how the world's going, you know how dangerous it is. Maybe where you are, I'm from Liverpool, but now I moved to Dubai and I've seen how safe Dubai is compared to Liverpool, so you realise how dangerous it is back there. So why wouldn't you want your child to learn how to defend themselves? And let's go into that point, self-defense, because it is by far the most important and the best part of learning MMA as a child. Doesn't matter if you're 16 years old or 4 years old, learning different combat sports, whether that be striking, which is obviously kicks and punches, jiu-jitsu, which is all about grappling on the floor and learning how to choke people or do arm locks, leg locks, etc. Or just straight wrestling, how to get someone through the floor. These are all so beneficial for defense. If someone's trying to attack you with punches or kicks and you know how to wrestle, you can get them to the floor, pin them, you don't have to fight them. You just understand that you can control them on the floor. Same with jiu-jitsu. If it's striking, you know how to defend yourself, and if you needed to, you can strike back. But the thing that you learn in MMA, and when I say MMA, I'm really just meaning a mix of the martial arts. I'm meaning whichever combat sport you pick, you learn how dangerous fighting is. You learn how dangerous combat as a whole is, whether that be jiu-jitsu, wrestling or striking. It doesn't matter which one, you learn how dangerous it is. So as a child, understanding that if you engage in combat with someone who knows how to fight, it can be super dangerous for you. And when you're rolling around with people who are much better than you and they're tapping you out or they're beating you up in a nice way, in a sparring way, in a safe environment, that's when you learn, oh, I need to make sure I'm behaving myself outside in public, outside of the gym, where people aren't as safe as inside this gym, because if I do engage in combat, I realise how dangerous it is. If I punch someone and they fall bang their head and then I have to go to jail, you learn that, you understand that punching people and kicking people can hurt yourself and them. So understanding what you're capable of is such an important skill every child needs to know. And even better though is understanding what you're not capable of. And I love this quote that Joe Rogan said once. He said, MMA is the best sport because if you play a basketball match and you lose in a 1v1, you couldn't say, yeah, but I could beat you up in a fight. Where if you lose a fight, no one's going to go, yeah, but I could beat you in basketball. Who cares? Literally no one would ever say that. So learning the peak sport, which is mixed martial arts, it's the premier sport out of every single sport in the world, because that's what people say. You see countless videos on Instagram of people playing a 1v1 basketball match, and then because someone gets angry because they lose, they start having a fight. But in MMA, if someone loses, it humbles them. It realises that it's an individual sport, so you realise that you're the only person that has to take accountability. You have to acknowledge that he was better than me. And as a child, that's so important to learn. The next thing I'm going to talk about is problem solving. And you might not think combat sports actually improves problem solving for kids, but it does so much, especially jiu-jitsu, where the tiniest mistake can allow for such a big counter for your partner, for your opponent. If you accidentally lean to one way, they can take your back and end the fight or end the round. So developing that skill at such a young age, I see the 4-year-olds I teach, when someone's maybe on their back, they're realising not to lift their chin in the air because they can get choked. At 4 years old, so young, they're realising these drastic effects to such small manoeuvres that they're doing. And what someone might come back at me and say about problem solving is, yeah, but you learn that in every sport. You learn that in football when someone's trying to close you down. There's a big difference between someone closing you down in football compared to someone trying to break your arm in MMA for problem solving. There's a huge mental difference. If you switch off for a second in football, you might not even get tackled, but if you switch off for a second in MMA, you can get hit. So you can't switch off. It makes you understand that you can't switch off ever. You have to be fully focused. So let's just go over what we've quickly talked about there. Self-defense, which is the best thing any child can learn. Problem solving, how to develop problems on the mat and off the mat. And individual accountability, knowing that if you fail, it's on you for not working hard or not trying harder, or understanding that sometimes some people are just better than you. Maybe they've trained for longer, they've worked harder than you. That's so important as a child. These 3 huge things make nice kids. They make kids who are humble. They make kids who are nice, who are caring, who are aware of their surroundings. And why wouldn't you want your child to be like that? And the final bit I'm going to talk about is it's so fun. It's so fun. It's such good exercise. It's exercise that allows you to learn how to defend yourself. That's a no-brainer if you ask me. For any parent watching this, that is more than anything you can ask for. It's your child enjoying themselves, having fun, while exercising, while learning how to defend themselves. And a lot of either it's jiu-jitsu schools, MMA gyms, academies, whatever it is, they use game-based learning. So they learn through games. It's not like they learn how to pass a ball for 50 minutes and then they have a 10-minute little game at the end. It's maybe they do fundamental movement exercises to start, whether that be a bear crawl, forwards roll, hopping, jumping. These stuff that I teach and I go so heavily detailed on that improve child's coordination, mobility, all different stuff like that. And I don't do that for this 4-year-old kid to then become a world-class fighter. I do that for this 4-year-old kid to become a world-class athlete. There's a huge difference, and no other sport hones in on fundamental movement skills more than mixed martial arts, more than combat sport, more than jiu-jitsu. And there's a clear correlation with all the kids I teach that then move on to playing for football academies, that play at a high level in hockey, play at a high level in basketball, and because they're so good at moving their own body and understanding how their hips and their legs and their back move in certain ways to allow them to dribble a football really well. But what you're not realising is all them ladder drills we done in boxing when they were 4 years old helped that coordination, helped them be so agile on the ball. A lot of parents don't even realise that, but the parents who do realise that kept their kid in for a really long time, and now they play for Man City Academy, now they play for Liverpool Academy. And then as you move on through the session, it goes into game-based learning, maybe through live drilling. So maybe you'll learn a technique, you'll learn how to do a technique, and then you'll have a competition. It's got that competition aspect within mixed martial art of, say you learn how to do a choke off someone's back, then you might do it where someone sits on their back and they have to try and choke them, the other person has to get out. It's giving that child that understanding, that thing that we talked about, the problem solving, the learning that through competition, which is the best way to learn. Games-based learning and through competition is the best way to learn, because that high intensity training makes the child use that problem solving skill even more. It enhances that skill and it makes them absolutely fly, it makes them amazing. And it improves them, obviously, physically and mentally, which is so important. So anyone watching this who is a parent and got any questions, drop them down in the comments. If you don't want to put them in the comments and you want to message me privately, here's my Instagram. And you can message me whatever you want there. Subscribe, like, and I'll see you later.